Now the same way, our string name is given a default value of an empty string. Two double quotes together. Now in our constructor, we do have some code. We have an if statement that is like limiting our intensity. If somebody passed in something that's greater than 10, we're going to make it 10. My friend needs that rule, right? But nobody's given him that rule. And then we are saying, what if they passed in parameters, or if they didn't, using the default, set our instance variables, driver intensity and driver name, equal to the values that were passed in our parameters. So now we've taken these values that were given to us, that I want a new motorcycle, it's going to be really fast, it's going to be 10, it's going to be moto, whatever, and then our motorcycle class is saying, oh, okay, well, I'm going to save that intensity and that name in my instance variables so that if anybody asks, I can tell them what your settings are. So we can do a lot with constructors. Now, after that region, we have a method that's going to set the driver name. We have our Papa Wheelie method. And then we have one that sets our intensity. Let's put a region statement to handle all of those. I'm going to say # region. These are instance methods. So these are all of the methods that are available to every instance of our motorcycle. Now I want to close that region statement. So I'm going to come to the end of my set intensity method and do the end region. Now if I close all these down, let's do it. You can go find specific areas of your code a little bit easier. So that's why people like the region statements. Now in our instance methods, if I expand those, notice that every method already has, you know, kind of a roll-up point already given to it, so we can handle that. Now, looking at our set driver name method, it has some interesting code. So this method is using a Lambda expression. Let's put a comment in there about that. And that's just the equal greater than sign. And it's kind of a shortcut indicator. And so that shortcut indicator is saying that instead of me having opening and closing curly braces for this method with a whole body thing, notice I don't have opening and closing curly braces at all. So the Lambda expression says instead of having that full method body, my method only contains one line of code, and this is it. Set the driver name equal to the name that was passed in. So the Lambda is a shortcut indicator that indicates there is a one statement body in this case. Okay, let's look at our car. Now in our car class, we have some state variables, instance variables. Actually, we only have our current speed. In the state, they're saying, is the state of these variables. You know, what kind of situation is our car in? What is its current speed? What is its pet name? Then we have a little bit different of a constructor here. In this example, we have a constructor for our car. Again, it says public and the name of our class. And in this constructor, it just sets our instance variables to certain values. So instead of using that kind of syntax like the motorcycle class did, this one just uses kind of a more straightforward syntax of setting up those instance variables default values. But then we get away from that to simple syntax. And in the next example, we have a Lambda expression again, saying that if somebody passes in a string, that's the pet name, and we want that pet name set to that string they passed in. So huge shortcut for us to be able to use those Lambda expressions, but a little bit more challenging for the beginning programmer. Now, this next car constructor has an example where we want a string and an integer. So in this constructor, we're expecting someone to pass us the pet name and the current speed. Now, there are 3 methods in this program, in this class, that are all named exactly the same. Car, car, car. This is an instance of an overloaded method. Now, the method here that's overloaded is our constructor. So this is an overloaded constructor method. And what this is saying is, if somebody creates an instance of a car with no parameters, C# will use this constructor. If somebody creates an instance of a car and they pass in a string, it will use this instance of the constructor that only expects a string. But if they pass a pet name and a current speed, 2 parameters, then we'll end up using this constructor because that'll match their call. So again, we see another way that C# is really powerful, that we can use the same method over and over, having different things happen depending on how we were called. So that really gives us an example of that overloaded constructor. And then we have 2 methods that are using the Lambda expression to indicate they only have 1 line of code each in them. So lots of great stuff. So let's go back to our program.cs file. And I want to start. It's nice for us to look at the code and to go through it, but sometimes it's not as meaningful, and sometimes you want to be able to do that at home. And so I want to show you how to use the debugger with Visual Studio so you can go step by step through the lines of code. So try it with me so that you can see what's going on, and you can yell out if something isn't making sense to you, or if you don't see something that we're looking at. The thing with the debugger is we can use it in many, many, many different ways. But one of the simplest things to do is just set a breakpoint. And what a breakpoint is it says stop executing here, let me take over and see what's going on, and then I'll continue execution if I want. So I'm going to set my breakpoint to be right here on my line 22, where we create that new motorcycle named C. So set that breakpoint. Notice I just went all the way over to this gray bar, and I clicked there on that line 22, and that put that red dot on that line, which indicates it's a breakpoint. Now, there's lots of other ways to do that. You can right-click on the line and choose breakpoint. I don't know, I've already got it now, but you would have add breakpoint if you didn't already. Up in your menu, on your debug menu, there is a new breakpoint option. So debugging is really, really important. If you're starting to get that impression, you're right. Because when you come in and you look at code that's not yours and you haven't seen before, the debugger is the best way to figure out what's going on. So now I've got my breakpoint set. I'm just going to start running my program. The debugger can be kind of hard to use when we're working with a console program, because we have to sort of go back and forth between what the debugger is showing us and what the console is showing us. So right now on my console screen, I see that my fun with class types message has already come out. That makes sense. That was this line of code up here. And now C# or the IDE is stopped on line 22. And I have this red circle, which was my breakpoint, and the yellow arrow indicating to me that that's where we're stopped right now. So this line of code has not executed yet. It hasn't been executed. We're sitting here waiting to execute it. So what's going to happen when we do? Well, in order for us to see, we need to kind of look around in our environment and see what we have going on. What kind of information do we have? Down here at the bottom, you should be seeing the locals screen, which is showing you the variables that are declared in our program.cs file. Over here we have what's called the call stack, which is kind of the sequence of who called who. So we can see all that information. We can do a lot more with the debugger though, so there's lots of other things. Now in your toolbar, when you see your stop button, go a little further over, and we want to find this blue down arrow that says step into. When we choose step into, that says go ahead and step into that line of code and start executing it. If we wanted to skip that line of code, we could choose step over. Or if we wanted to step out of the debugger completely, we could step out of the debugger. Trouble? Do you don't see them? Let's see if we can find them. Are they hiding? That's why I want to do it together. Sometimes it's all right, so I want to step into. Now, as soon as I step into this, I'm going to be running this line of code. So I'm going to see that execution control is going to branch from my program.cs file to my motorcycle.cs file. And we'll see that happening as it starts executing that constructor. So now we're in our motorcycle class. We've switched our execution. And in our motorcycle class, we're starting in our constructor. We're going to set those default values. If you look down at your locals screen, you should see them. We're passing in an intensity of 5. So we should be able to watch that get updated. I'm going to step into again. Now, when you're using the debugger, the local screen is one area to see what your variables and things are set to, but you can also mouse over them. So if I mouse over this intensity variable, it shows me that it's set to 5, so I can see what's going on there. All right, I'm going to keep stepping into. Now I'm going to get my class instance variables properly set. And I'm done creating a motorcycle. I'm going to click this one more time though, and now I can actually see it down here in my locals area. Now, do you see your instance C? If we click the rectangle to expand it, you should see your instance variables. So instead of just having one variable in my program like a string, a class gives me the ability to kind of bundle a bunch of variables up together and say these all work together. They're the data part of this class. Now I'm going to keep stepping through my program. I'm going to run this c.setDriver name to tiny. Now we should see again execution control switch back to our motorcycle class. Oh, yep, there's our motorcycle class. It's running that one line of code to update the driver name. Did it. Now we're going to run our Papa Wheelie. And we're back to our motorcycle class running our Papa Wheelie. We could do our for loop. Oh, that's where our yeehaw came from. All that wheelie popping. Now with the debugger, I could update the value of certain variables if I want to, so I don't have to sit here and go through this loop. But that's for another day. So this day, I'll just sit here and go through it. Okay, I finished the Papa Wheelie. And as you walk through the code, you can actually Watch how your execution control branches from one thing to another. We're going to create a motorcycle. Again, our Harley. And now we should, if I go one more, we'll see we have our C motorcycle and our Harley motorcycle. This tester is kind of big, so I'm going to stop execution, but I want you to experiment with it whenever you have an opportunity. I'm going to click on this. Sometimes just trying things like that is the best way to understand how things are going, because even if you're just staring at it, clicking that button, sometimes you can have an epiphany and understand something that you didn't understand before. Questions about it? So quiet, you guys all got it? You're so good. Okay, let's check and see. Watching all that code so you can see where the control is going. Do what?
Just go to the next line of code. Choose the debugger.
If you just want to go through all of it, you could. But if you, so the point would be like, if you had like a huge program and you just wanted to investigate this little area, you could set a breakpoint in that little area, that method. So you can kind of isolate it to just the one area you really want to investigate. Because yeah, the way we're looking at it, you could just step through the whole thing. But if you have a bunch, you want to kind of keep it separate. All right, I want some status back from you, because we've got our Unit 1 exam next time. Now our exams are definitely more based off the Quizlet terms than our C# Pro book. And there should be practice exams, but you'll have to back up through the different weeks. Sorry about that. I'll try to pull them all together for you, but right now you'll have to back up. So like the chapter 3 one is more of the vocab. So if you are looking at Quizlet and looking at the practice exams, you will be fine, because the practice exams are the same exact quiz bank as this unit exam will come from. The majority of the unit exam is our project. So we're going to do our exam on Wednesday. Your project will be due next week on Wednesday in the morning. So that's why it's kind of a weird date, because next Wednesday I'd like for you guys as a study group to present this project to the rest of the class. So it's a unit exam, but here I am kind of saying that I want your study group to present it. That's kind of weird, isn't it? I want you to support each other. I want your study group to support each other. I do not want you to be struggling alone, saying, oh, this unit exam, I should figure this out. No, this is one that you should work together with your group on, and you guys should hopefully go through it fairly easily. Maybe not need your group. Remember, if you don't need your group might need you. Maybe you're the missing link that they all need. But next Wednesday then, we'll come into class and we'll split up into our study groups, and we'll have each of you explain a little bit about what you did for this project to the rest of the class. Now, this is the first one that I want you to do that for, because this is the first one that really has enough meat to it that you're going to have differences. You know, our earlier projects have been so small that every study groups probably would have been very similar. And that may be the case this time too. So that's all right. But we'll just screen share real quick and try to look at each group and see what they did. Biggest technical hurdle encountered and how it was overcome. If you've noticed, this one I would like to know a technical hurdle, not a personal one. It's always funny when you ask that question, what was the biggest hurdle you ran into? And someone will be like, oh, my girlfriend just did the terrible. No, that's not what I'm talking about. How was your program? So we just want our program. And the most important concept learned, that might be hard. This is for your group. Now, that's what we'll do next Wednesday for a lot of our time. And I'll let you look at the project and let me know if you have any questions. So this Wednesday, unit exam in class. So come here. We'll start the exam at 8. Some of you will be done like really, really fast. You're welcome to leave at that point, or you're welcome to stay and meet with your group after everybody else gets done with the exam. And there's, you know, it's okay for noise. So what do I want you to do? So today, I want you to split up into your groups because I haven't had you meet with them much, and you guys have been doing so good going through the REPL courses that the feedback I've been getting is that you haven't needed to contact your group, which is great because so far we've been working with things that, you know, that's good that you could do that. So I want you to meet with your study group today, and the first thing we're going to do is create a status report giving me some feedback on your confidence level. So I just have 3 things here that I want to know about your group's confidence level to make sure that everybody's feeling like they know how to create, open, and save projects in Visual Studio. I think I mentioned that last week. You guys make such short order out of that, and that's really caused a lot of trouble to some people over the years, so good job. Understanding of methods, you know, what is a method, how that method header is formatted, how that relates to a hierarchy diagram, calling methods, passing parameters, and saving return values. So I'd like to know from your group if there's areas that you feel like your group needs additional practice for and how they could get that. It's just moving. And then I'm going to get you a big giant sheet of Post-it note paper, and each study group has a topic assigned that relates to classes or objects. Notice that I didn't ask you how confident you're feeling with classes and objects because we're just getting started with that. So each group has an assigned topic area. Group 1 is going to use the giant Post-it note to explain the class header and class data items. They're going to give us a code sample, a definition of those things, and a visual, like a flow chart or a diagram or something to help us understand. Group 2 is going to talk about properties. Group 3, instance methods, and Group 4, overriding methods. So you might have to do a little research to get that information put together, or you might not. But as you guys are started with your status meeting, I'll be passing out all of the paper and markers and things for this one. So let's do it. I'm just going to give you until about 9:20, and then we'll see where we are.
I didn't get a lot from it. Did you guys do one of the regular course side? I was looking at the third one the next stop for the day. I do 3 hours. I eventually got a word. Did you get it done? Did you get it done? Not all.
First one was finishing up kind of what we did. Okay, here's colors and looking at last round. That wasn't the problem. But then after that, you kind of do it by yourself with these instructions, and then you just like that. And she had the video, the first two just fine. And then the third one, video was like cut out. And the fourth and fifth one, there is no video. And so, like,
Yep, 2 or 3 hours I've done.
the very last one, yes. The very last one I got done. Like, in order to get this one to work, I had to cut out stuff on this one. Yeah. That's what I did. But then on the next one, I had to have it. And she gave us this bit of code string, format, import, equal string, format, and her line of code for 3 lines of code would not work. Would not work. So eventually I had to get something.
I'll send it to you. Can't quite see it all.
She had this on price. I couldn't get that to work, so I actually had to and she also trying to grab my version. That's why I did But also, like, I could feel it scratching down.
Second through.
I noticed that there was some discrepancies and stuff as well. I had one, like, it was green, and I had an R there, and the border was on the middle. Yeah, okay, let me see if I didn't put that R. She didn't have the R, so green means that it takes something away, and then red means I need to add something. I was like, what? It's backwards. It is backwards. And so, like, I don't have an exact match with the output just because of like formatting and stuff like that. It was originally good luck. Well, we are all here for you. Actually, I'll be going grocery shopping, so I won't. And it's due.
See, okay, I think it went through that time.
Do the 12th. Or do sometime. Let's see what my guy has to say. No, it's due tonight. No, tomorrow. It's tomorrow. I was going to do something. What on the project? Let's do this first before we start talking about our. I was just going to say where I should get locked in with syntax. That little book I got. Would that help me? I'd expect the little book to be easier to use than Because great big book is always green. Like two green, it is green. My teacher, Mr. Markley, said they create another book for C-sharp that's easier to understand, and I just can't remember.
It's the one that's linked to every one of your
No, it's
intro assignments and modules.
You're talking about the Doyle one.
Mhm.
But she said that the author of the C-sharp Pro.
Oh, that one. That one. Yeah. They wouldn't let us switch. It's really a hard. I think that in the end, you guys are going to have really good knowledge, but it's a really hard book. It really is.
When in doubt, Google out.
It's a hard book.
W3 schools free.
Has anybody looked at the Code Academy course for C#?
No, I don't know. I haven't even looked at Code Academy, so.
Hmm?
We are group 2, so there's a really great app that's free on App Store. Do you have that document sheet share? And
No, I think some people have mentioned it before. Oh, it doesn't have C#. No C#.
Or two.
Yeah, we are group 2.
Public properties, getters.
Okay, so how are we at creating, opening, and saving projects in C-sharp? You're good? You think you're okay? I'm not good at creating. I'm not how to start. So file, and then new project. And then we usually do, yeah, the console app right now. But I bet in the future we'll do stuff. And then David, and it's like a place to save, you know, stuff. Okay. So how are we with embedded? What is
It's an instance, like saying, right?
Uh-huh.
So I was doing it, you write it on the page, public, static.
Write it on the giant paper and then we'll go around to each one.
So this is the method of this thing.
So do you guys remember from your